Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to today's crypto workshop session with Zeb. We're in week 4 of UNIT Masters and very excited to hear and learn about the status quo of what I find quite an innovative innovation that the blockchain space brought to us. Zeb, stage is all yours for
Yeah,
DAO 101.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so today we are going to talk about quite something interesting indeed, really something new. Let me set up the chat in my screen. You won't see it, but I do. And the camera there. All right. Okay, everyone. Today we're going to talk about DAOs. So for today, I want to already give a couple of notes. So last week, we really went into doing your own research, which a couple of you I already see with the names were also there. Now, last week was quite interactive. We really did things together. We did research together. Now, today is about DAOs, and doing DAOs together is a little bit more abstract. That is something that sadly you will have to try out for yourself, but I will explain about it today, and I will give some tools of how to do it. I will talk about a whole bunch of stuff, but it will be a bit less interactive. Still though, you can always ask questions. I will ask some questions, so please use the chat and I will definitely answer back. And as with last week, this is again more of a teaser because this is a huge topic, and I will try to make it as understandable as possible. I just saw in the pre-poll that we have people from all different ages, from different areas, with different moods. I saw most of you feel happy today. That's good. I'm glad to hear. But just keep in mind that today is more of like a primer, a little bit of an intro. I do give these kind of talks in all different sizes and shapes, and today will be more of a beginner. So let's see, what are we going to talk about today? Well, first, of course, we're going to go over what a DAO is. We have to know what we're talking about. After that, we will look into why a DAO is even a thing right now. Why are we talking about this? After that, we will look into the history of DAOs to see where it started and perhaps where it's going. And then we will look at a couple of real examples of DAOs that are live right now. We will talk about the challenges that DAOs have, because DAOs are very innovative, but that doesn't mean that they're immediately solving all problems of human interaction. After that, we will look at what a good DAO looks like. So we are going to see at the examples that we have right now and what works well. And we will really go into that for some time, because luckily there are good examples. After this, we will make it a little bit more personal and talk about my own experience, which I think, of course, my experience is special, but everyone's experience is special in their own way. So I will show how I became a DAOist, as they say. After that, we will discuss how you can join a DAO and which DAO to choose, because there are many. And then we will conclude. So quite a packed session for today. What is a DAO? Now, I would like to ask actually the crowd. So DAO stands for, it's an abbreviation. It stands for 3 words. Anyone who knows, can they type it in the chat? Let's see if anyone knows what DAO stands for. Let's see, give people a little bit of time. There we go, very good, Nathan. A decentralized autonomous organization. Indeed, that is exactly what it stands for. Now let's go through this term for a moment. So decentralized is the opposite of centralized, and decentralized is really one of the main words you will come across when it comes to blockchain all the time. So I would say a quick explanation is centralized means one point of power or failure, one point, an entity or person who decides of what it will happen. And decentralized, the idea is that a lot of users or organizations or points come together to a conclusion. Now, autonomous, I feel, of these three words is perhaps a misnomer, because autonomous, it assumes that this organization can completely work and live without any outside interference or help. And I think that's not completely true, since a DAO is still made up of people and code built on smart contracts on the blockchain, sure, but it's still people. So autonomous, sure, but it's still connected with the rest of the world. There are some aspects that are indeed autonomous, and we will get to that point in a moment. Organization, I think we all know what that means. It's a group of people trying to get to a certain goal. Now, let's get into this a little bit more. Cooper Turley, a community member in crypto world, he says, let me take the chat out of the way. There you go. You can think of DAOs as a collective of like-minded, so people who think the same thing, individuals focused on solving a common goal. They have the same goal. These communities leverage smart contracts to pool funds to get money together and issue new shares with a lack of, so no hierarchy, no leaders. This system ensures no funds are being spent without the group's consensus, without the whole group agreeing, presenting a new paradigm, a new way for social coordination, unlike anything we've seen to date. So to recap, a DAO is a group of people who have a goal, and they decide upon how to get to that goal through voting on the money that they will spend with a blockchain. They do this, and the whole group has to come to a conclusion together. This is done by voting with tokens. So maybe I will already stop here for a short moment and ask if there's a question basically just on this. If there is, you can write it in the chat, because this was quite a mouthful of a definition. Let's see, anyone? So far, not yet. Then let's continue. Oh, yes. Why a DAO? So again, I would like to ask the crowd, why would we want a DAO? Anyone has any idea? Why would you want to have a DAO? Can someone perhaps come up with a reason? Why should you want a decentralized autonomous organization, perhaps compared to traditional organizations that are centralized? Any reason? Let's see if anyone has an idea. And perhaps also, do you have an idea? She's thinking hard. Oh, there's the crowd already. Minimizing management bureaucracy. Very good one. Let's see who said that. That was Arsion. Yeah, minimizing management bureaucracy will indeed be mentioned. Very good. No single authority. Yeah, so no single authority is the decentralization part, and for some cases that will indeed be good. More privacy. That depends on how you do a DAO. So blockchains are not always private. You have to keep that in mind. Less peer pressure. Interesting one. All the answers are rolling in. So governments doesn't tie up funds due to political reasons. Yeah, so censorship resistance, perhaps. That is a good one. Ability to move quickly. We will talk about that one in a moment. More self-authority. Well, as an organization, yeah, you could argue that. Let's see what I came up with. Oh, one more from Takwir. Server owned by vast amount of people instead of one single entity. Yeah, exactly. So this decentralized part is for some use cases quite useful. And trust, well, with a open blockchain that is transparent, you can create more trust on where the money is spent. So yes, Artem, that is a very good reason indeed. I should add that one to my list. I didn't. So the first one that I mentioned is open and inclusive. So a low barrier to entry. Basically, anyone with an internet connection can join a DAO. Now, what you can then do is talk in this organization with other people about what you want to happen in this DAO. But if you want to be part of the actual votes, of the actual decision-making about the funds, then in these DAOs, you usually need a governance token. So then you have to buy that, or you can be very active within the community and get them as rewards. So it's quite open and inclusive compared to, for instance, a traditional company where, well, try to be on a board discussion, you won't be able to. And here you can just talk to all of these people directly, which comes to the next point, that it's really global. There are no limits when it comes to like borders of countries or regulations. All of this is happening out there on the internet. And as some already mentioned, this might have some use cases, and some like here, who said that, where was it? Yeah. So the government doesn't tie up funds due to political reasons. It's global and open and inclusive and not tied to one country. The other one is spontaneous order, that it comes out of nowhere. So it's not organized from one group, which is unpredictably creative. I really like this. I think this is really the power of these DAOs, is that they just spring up. There is no real authority, and people just come up with their ideas, and then people can vote on it and see if it gains traction. A good example of this, for instance, is there is this quite famous newsletter called Bankless. Some of you might have heard of it. And Bankless is all about crypto. And they decided to become a DAO. So this newsletter with a bunch of writers, they were like, we want to create an organization for our readers and ourselves. And these readers, they were like, cool, we have a DAO, we have a community, we're going to do something with this. And what did they come up with? They did something completely new. Instead of a newsletter or new articles, which they also create, they came up with a Bankless BAD index, and it stands for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and DeFi Pulse, which is like an index of DeFi tokens. And now you have one token, the BAD token, and that is a very easy way to enter as someone who is totally new to the space. You immediately have exposure to Ethereum and Bitcoin, the two biggest projects out there, and a whole list of DeFi projects. So that is quite interesting to see how a newsletter ends up with a financial product. And that is something you just cannot predict. Yeah. Now, another thing, which already was mentioned, is potentially efficient. So let me get into that a little bit more. One of the projects that has shown, let me take the chat out of the way, that has shown some promise here is Yearn, making over 10 million in revenue in May this year only. Yearn is projected to generate 123 million in analyzed revenue over this year. In comparison, robo-advisors, centralized companies, Betterment and Wealthfront reportedly accrued 50 million and 30 million in analyzed revenues, respectively. So Yearn is a yield aggregator. It's a financial product. And they have been able to make more than double than what some of their centralized counterparts. And what I personally find even more interesting is that with 21 mostly pseudonymous, so not really public team members, Yearn currently spent 133,000 in salaries throughout April. In contrast, robo-advisors Betterment and Wealthfront have 293 and 231 employees, while BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, employs 16,000 people. So you can see that they use, well, at least 10 times less people to make sometimes twice as much revenue. So this does show that there is a potential for more efficiency. Now, my question here, thank you for sharing indeed a link to Yearn. Now, my question here for the crowd is, why do you think it could be that a blockchain project, a decentralized app on the blockchain, can be so much more efficient? So yeah, please type away and let's see what you guys think and girls think is perhaps the reason for this. I'm very curious because with your previous answers, you gave a couple of ones that I didn't even include. So we already have spontaneous, well, not necessarily order, but creativity. Let's see if someone has an idea. Why does a blockchain project generate more money with less employees? Why would that be possible? I'll give a little bit more time. it's an interesting thing, and we haven't really seen this before, so perhaps it is a difficult one. There we are, Natalia. System of tracking showing up work and sharing wealth. So really, like the technology is helping to be more efficient here. Could be, and sharing wealth also. Yeah. By the way, Natalia, I didn't mention it here, but it is true that Wiren is also doing revenue share towards token holders. So they are sharing wealth. Personal motivation is more directly channeled in a DAO. So, okay, yeah, so these people, they are real stakeholders and therefore they have more motivation. Less administrative overhead. Tom, I think you hit the nail on the head right there. Because as I mentioned before, these projects are global. They don't have to deal with regulations of countries. They are also without like brick and mortar company buildings, which Betterment and Wealthfront have. So yeah, Wireearn is just being more efficient there. Let's continue. Next one, history of DAOs. So again, a question to the crowd. Who knows the very first DAO, or at least one of the very first that was popular? Anyone? Does anyone know? MakerDAO. MakerDAO. Well, that is in the list here. So very good, both of you. I will mention it, but it's not the first one. Dash, very close, very good, close, is also in this list. Very good. Maybe one more. Let's see. The DAO, also in the list. Very good, class, but it's not the first one. So let me go for it. It is BitShares BTC. Wait, I will give some time for that for a moment though. Felix, BTC as a DAO, I would say not really, because governance of Bitcoin is actually being done off-chain by developers, not at all with a DAO organization. But here we have it from Sidik, BitShares, Dan Larimer, who is one of the founders of that. BitShares is in 2015, one of the first projects who had voting on the blockchain. This was one of the first, but as with a lot of experiments, it didn't really work out well. Dan Larimer is famous for, well, creating a whole bunch of other projects after. One of them is EOS, and we also have a Reddit type of project that he launched, but he also left again. So after that, we had Dash, which stands for Digital Cash. And they have a system, it's still running, of master nodes. So these are people who have tokens of Dash, and they stake them and become stakeholders, literally. And they are running software to also help with validation of blocks. Just like in Bitcoin, you have miners, in Dash you have miners and master nodes, and they together come to consensus, and they vote on a self-funding mechanism, which actually ties back to the autonomous part. So in Dash, you have, Dash is a blockchain like Bitcoin or Ethereum, and it has inflation. And 45% of the block reward, every block inflation, goes to miners, 45% goes to masternodes, and 10% is voted upon to do whatever with that the masternodes decide upon. So it's quite cool. They can decide, we want more development teams, we want more marketing. So they really became a self-funding mechanism that does not need funding from outside. Autonomous. And you can say also that Dash is the first one that really started using DAO as a name, a decentralized autonomous organization. After that, Ethereum starts to really adopt DAO model with all of its dApps, decentralized apps, and the DAO came, which really took the name, the DAO. And the DAO was basically a project that said, if you buy into our ICO, into our fundraising, the funds will afterwards be decided upon by people who have DAO tokens. So it's like a crowdfunding platform that every token holder can decide where shall we use it for. Sadly, within a month of launching, it got hacked. So it was one of the biggest hacks at the time in Ethereum, and people really said like, oh, this DAO stuff, it will never happen. Look how it went. But quite soon, people realized it was not the DAO that got, or not the DAO structure that got hacked, but smart contracts got hacked. So people started continuing with the idea of DAOs. And there you have it, MakerDAO, which is very famous for having a stablecoin called DAI, but it also has a governance token, Maker, MKR. It was one of the first real governance tokens. Now, almost all projects has governance tokens. Like last week, we talked about Aave, for instance. We will talk more about that today. Also has a governance token. Basically, most tokens have a governance token now. And in this year, Wyoming legislature on DAOs. So now even countries, governments are recognizing legally recognizing DAOs. So we have come quite a long way in only 6 years. And of course, the question is, where will it go to? What is the future of this? Are we going to get digital countries? Are we going to have groups of people who fund things together on a DAO, like have money, and then go into the real world and buy land and have a real world new country funded by a DAO? We don't know where it will go. Yeah, thank you. Indeed, Vermont also has legal DAOs. That's very true. From what I understand, Wyoming was the first, but maybe I'm wrong. So where are we right now? If we look at the evolution of DAOs, I would say we are very early still. So at this moment, we are, I think, more in the hunter-gatherer stage, and a lot of people that are interacting with crypto right now are also called degenerates or apes. And I think we are moving towards more of like societies being built with what I would like to call DAOists or DAOplanets. And that is where we're going. But right now, it is still really, really early. So what are some examples of active DAOs? I want to ask the crowd, of course. Who knows some DAOs that are live right now? Anyone? Of course, MakerDAO. We mentioned that one. MakerDAO is still there. Instadep, very good. Yeah, Instadep became a DAO not too long ago. UNIT. Yip, is UNIT already a DAO? Yip. Soon. Or maybe, yes, soon. Freeton. Yeah, that is a fork of Telegram, from what I believe. I believe they are a DAO. Yeah, DAO Stack indeed is quite an old one. Not super active anymore from my understanding, but it is definitely still out there. Yeah, good. A couple of them. Yeah. So let me give a couple more examples. One that we discussed last week is Aave, which is a lending protocol. And Aave is a DAO because if you buy the Aave token, you can vote on what new collateral types, so new type of tokens that you can lend and borrow, will be added to the platform, and also just in general, where the platform is moving towards. And what Aave has, and what also MakerDAO and a bunch of other ones have, which I think is quite interesting, is Aave is a lending, a financial platform. And since they recognize that it is still really early, they have an insurance fund. So people who can stake Aave, lock up the token Aave, they are helping insure the project for any potential hacks. And for this risk that they are taking on, they are being rewarded with other Aave tokens from the treasury, which we talked about last week in the Do Your Own Research workshop. We had token allocations, and Aave has a part of its tokens allocated to staking rewards for people who are helping with the insurance fund. Now, another one is completely different because we always hear about financial stuff with crypto, but there is so much more happening. So for instance, we have the Jenny DAO, and Jenny DAO is a group of art fans who wanted to participate in NFTs, art on the blockchain, but they didn't have the money personally to buy, let's say, the next digital Mona Lisa. So they are banding together and together are voting on which NFTs to buy. So that's also an interesting project. Another thing that's happening is DAOs coming together. So not one DAO, but multiple DAOs all becoming partnerships, and even mergers are happening, and also acquisitions are happening. So in that sense, we are getting like traditional stuff in this decentralized world, but all happening with token holders, all around the world globally and very open and transparent. So that's really a new thing. Wiren is the one that we mentioned a little bit earlier, and they have partnerships with, I believe, even more than are mentioned on this picture right now. And as I mentioned, completely other stuff like newsletters are creating DAOs, and also an exchange and wallet, crypto wallet. One of the first ones that I used in 2015-16 when I was evangelizing crypto to my friends and family. I would say, go download the Jax wallet with Shapeshift in there. You can already exchange tokens. It was really the early days. And Shapeshift was a centralized company. And now they are like, after, I believe, 8 years, they say, we're going to decentralize. It is time. And they're going to become a DAO. And they are going to, no, they already have, airdropped. So they've shared tokens with users, with Fox tokens, because this is a little fox over there. And as we talked last week in a do your own research workshop, there are token allocations, for instance, to airdrops. They had that, and they airdropped to more than 1 million users. It was the biggest airdrop ever. Now, also last week, I highlighted that some of these airdrops are scams. So always Google a little bit. Don't immediately think like, oh, free money. For instance, yesterday morning, I checked my own portfolio. It was suddenly ×3, and I was like, whoa, awesome. And then I looked into it. It was an airdrop, and it was a scam. So too bad. So always do your own research with airdrops. I can say with Shapeshift, it was a real one. Now, challenges, because this all sounds awesome, but of course, there are some things that are not that easy yet. So let's ask the crowd, what do you guys think that are challenges? What do you think is difficult with DAOs or is not solved yet? Or maybe never will be solved? That is also a possibility, of course. So let's give the audience a little bit of time. So far, every time you delivered well. So let's see. What could be one of these challenges? Let me also see, there might have been, Wyoming is where the Fed meets once a year. The senator is outspoken on these topics. Yeah, very true. Creating a system where trust is based, what measures trust? Yeah, Natalia, that is indeed a good question. Yeah, what measures trust? Well, I think one of the ways we can measure it is the transparency on the blockchain. So with where do the funds go that are being voted on, and are all the votes being counted for? For instance, like who has voted? Is it all one address or multiple addresses? But even there, do we really know if that's multiple people? MetaMask and Shapeshift both have a Fox. That is very true. I think that Shapeshift even tried to make their Fox more abstract because of MetaMask. MetaMask came later. Yeah, why do you think a fox is such a good icon for a wallet? To be sly as a fox? I don't know. But MetaMask is not the same as Shapeshift, just saying. Okay, there are not that many answers for challenges, so let's just go through them. Personally, what I see is that we have a lot of DAO names, but little DAO structure. So there are plenty of projects coming out with DAO in their name, but if you do your own research, and then you check like, what do they really have? Are they really voting on things, or is the team just being the one who does everything? A lot of the times that is still the case. For instance, Keeper DAO, which is a project that I really like its use case, and it has DAO in the name, and I was so hyped. I was like, this is a brilliant project. And then I look into it, and all the governance is not live, there are no votes, and the team decides everything. It's a bit of an anticlimax. I'm a bit like, nah, too bad. And this happens quite a lot. I will say we should be patient. These projects often do say that they will change later on, but that it takes time. And as I said, in the evolution, we are still quite early. So I think we should give people the benefit of doubt with these projects. But it's also up to us as users, as public, to demand changes. Like, hey, you said half a year ago that you were going to decentralize. I saw nothing happening. What's up? We have to keep asking, because otherwise there's no incentive for them to do it. So in that sense, there is a very big discussion going on for decentralized immediately or slowly. These things are really different. They have different arguments there. Another one is on-chain and off-chain, voting and implementing. So people can vote on things, and that's good. It's good that we can vote on stuff with DAOs, that's cool. But depending on what you're voting on, who is actually making this real? Like, for instance, with Aave, you could vote with all of us. We could vote and say Aave should also create a wallet or should create a newsletter. Cool. Who's going to write it? Who's going to make these articles? Is that really going to happen? So there's a gap between on the blockchain and real life world. And at the moment, with most of these votes, afterwards, you just are trusting the team, the developers, to do it. But they could just be like, you know what? We don't really like to work on that. Or even they could just work on it really slow. So this is still an issue. Now, there are some projects that realize this, and they have said, they've been very transparent about that, and they say, look, on-chain voting is cool, but it's not as direct as we want it to be. So what we do, for instance, Kyber is a decentralized exchange to exchange tokens. They say you can vote on a couple of parameters, like what the fees will be or where the fee sharing will go towards. And if you vote on that, it's hard-coded in the smart contract, it immediately changes. I think that's really cool, but it's limited. Now, another one, as in the rest of the world, low voter turnouts. So you have these governance tokens, people can vote with it, but most people don't. So I think this is, again, we're early stage. Maybe later on, when this grows at scale, this will change a bit more. I think people also just don't really know how to vote, perhaps sometimes, although it's quite easy these days. Maybe it's just a problem that people have not really solved in general. People don't really vote. And there are some projects that try to work on this. For instance, Kyber, where with Kyber, if you want to earn rewards, you have to be a participant in voting. So you can stake for more KNC tokens, but you only get them if you actually vote on proposals. And bam, of course, 99% suddenly votes. So with incentive mechanisms, this might work. And this is, by the way, a thing that with blockchain in general, we think about all the time. Game theory. I mean, Bitcoin in itself is game theory of how to keep people aligned towards the common goal that we want in a way that everyone wins. And perhaps we can come up with some ideas with voting as well. Then spontaneous order. I personally believe it's slower than centralized order. I think that if a whole group has come together on consensus, that will take more time than if a team just says, we're going to do this and this and this, and that's it. So it is slower. Another one is regulations. So if you want to participate in a DAO, governments make it difficult to earn your wage from DAO tokens. I would say mainly by the uncertainty. People just have no idea how to deal with this. And I think this will also change with time. And I mean, some people, perhaps they do a couple of contributions here and there, and they are like, well, how much tokens do I really get? Do I really have to care about this? It's all up to you. But this is just a little bit of a gray area at this point in time. Let's see, Victoria says, it would make sense to have a minimum quorum for voting. There are minimum quorums, and some projects have them like 50% or 70%. Some projects have them very low, like 20% or 30%. And what I see is that with blockchains, so really layer ones, for instance, with Tezos, it's, I believe, above 70%. And I think that's quite reasonable because it's about hard forks. It's really big changes to the whole ecosystem of Tezos. And you can see with, for instance, dApps, so apps built on blockchains, that it's quite low, that it can be 30% quorum. So these things are being experimented with. Another challenge is people with not the right expertise voting. Yeah, this is indeed a very interesting topic that I agree with. Like, we are not really sure yet if you want a community to always vote on highly experimental, cutting edge, very expertise type of stuff. I mean, do we all have the knowledge to understand technological innovation? Maybe not. But this is all part of the experiment that's happening right now. And I think indeed that maybe in the future, we will see that some projects are going back and say, look, the team developing this stuff, that's centralized, but the contracts and accessing it has no permissions and is global and everyone can use it. And actually, I already see this happening with some projects. Wait, I see one more question. They should at least read the documentation like what? Well, how are you going to enforce that? We want that. I mean, with people voting in countries, you would also want them to at least understand. But these are problems. I think an effort to educate the DAOs would be good. Yeah, so I totally agree there. And I think this is starting to happen. There is a project called the DAOist, and they are going to do things for that. I am also looking forward to work with them in the future. I think all of this will happen, but it's early. It's very early. What makes a DAO good? Let's see what good looks like. Well, maybe someone already has an idea. Let's ask the crowd again. What makes a DAO good? What are the things that we want to see in a DAO? What do you think are things that help? For instance, someone said, so education, I suppose. Good documentation is a requisite for people to read it, right? A strong community. Yes, wide participation. Exactly, Takir. So I think wide participation is really important because otherwise you are just back to a centralized company again. Now, wide participation can be found in some of these projects. For instance, the index Coop has a very wide participation. A lot of people are in these channels, community channels, talking, are doing things. Transparency, definitely, I totally agree there. I mean, yes, I think most DAOs do quite well on transparency, although there are always private conversations happening. So that isn't a thing. Inclusivity and invitation via informing, via marketing and communications. Yeah, you like this wide participation doesn't come out of nowhere. You have to foster a community. So very well. Now, wide participation doesn't necessarily mean wide ownership, wide distribution of tokens. So this is something, for instance, with Index Coop, even though I really like Index Coop, I think they should do better. You have wide participation, but a lot of the tokens are in the hands of the original team that created the DAO. So you want wide distribution of DAO tokens to the right people who are participating with it. And you might be surprised, but structure really makes a DAO good. And an example for this is synthetics DAOs. They have three. They have three different areas that they thought needed different DAOs. And synthetics even is experimenting with what they call a Spartan Council. And the Spartan Council is being voted upon, who is in there. And you could look at this as a board of directors with stakeholders, people who have the SNX synthetics token. They vote on who is on this board of directors. So some projects are going back to some things that they see worked in the past. But this is all very fluid and experimental at the moment. So I want to say that blockchain often is connected with anarchy, anarchism, and anarchy means no rulers in Greek. It does not mean no rules. And I think that's very good to remember, because a lot of people see anarchy as synonymous with chaos, but it is a meaning that we have attributed to it over time. But anarchism just means no rulers, but people are making rules together. And clear ownership over tasks, which, for instance, in synthetics DAO and Index Coop gets voted upon regularly by token holders, I think that really helps. Now, a little moment for the chat, because I want to endorse what you just shared, a good overview about the Index Coop. I think that link is indeed really interesting, and I actually used a little bit out of it right in the next slide. So we will see a little bit of it. And challenges, could DAOs be hacked? The hacker create loopholes. Of course, every smart contract can be hacked. I would say that's a challenge of blockchain in general. But yes, that is indeed a possible risk. So let's go into something that you just indeed highlighted. So in Index Co-op, what they do, which you can read in that link, is if you join their channels, they give you a welcome form that you can fill in. And they ask you what your skills are, what time zone you are in, because it's global, possible areas of contribution where you want to help out, and time commitment. And I think this is really cool because you join this community, it might be overwhelming, and they immediately give you this whole welcome and structure. So they ask you, like, yeah, what would you like to do? And then they have a real structure with different working groups. And you can join one of those working groups. They will have a conversation with you. They have like weekly introductory calls for new people. I think Index Co-op is one of the leading DAOs on this aspect. And here you can see, let me put the chat out of the way. Here you can see different working groups. So they have business development, growth, design, product, engineering, written content, people writing about what is happening, community, like community development, but also community. Oh, Felix, I will definitely share the slides afterwards. Of course, of course. I should have mentioned it from the start. I definitely will. They also have treasury, which I mentioned a couple times, and last week in the token allocation section, they have an area of funds that can be voted upon. Free tone works similarly. Yeah, Philip, I think a lot of these DAOs are starting to do this because it works. It really works, especially working groups. That is just the way to go. And as you can see, there are different key contacts with funny names like Lemonade Alpha, Pepperoni Joe. These are like the working group leaders that are being chosen from the community. So they also show what time you can spend on it. And you might think like, I don't have time to work with a DAO, I have a job. But here you can see, even if you have 1 hour a week, you could write some articles or you can contribute with your skills in their channels. And if you have a lot of time, maybe due to COVID, you lost your job, well, then you can join a DAO and really become very active in one of these working groups and get contributed in tokens. And I will say right now, because we're so early on, most DAOs are quite generous with sharing contributions towards these contributors because they feel like this is early. If you are taking the time right now to help us become a bigger project, you deserve to own a stake in this network. So there's no excuse not to try out working with a DAO. So let's go into a little bit of a personal DAO story of mine, because you hear about all of this and you might think like, how does someone enter into a DAO? So let me give you my point of view there. I am a crypto researcher. I work with Cyber Capital. It is the oldest crypto fund of Europe, and I've been working with them for the last already 5 years. So I've been doing research into crypto projects for a long time. And then one of the projects that came upon my path of research was token sets. And token sets, what they do is they create a new token that has multiple tokens inside, basically. So you're like, oh, I like those two things together, but I don't want to hold multiple tokens. Let me just buy directly this one and I will have both. And it also goes a little bit further with like strategies built into it that otherwise you have to do multiple transactions for. Now token sets just makes it easy, puts it all in one token, go ahead and buy it. I thought that was really cool, was interesting. It wasn't something for the fund that I work for, but I was intrigued. So I bought some sets, I played around with it, and this is like early 2020. Then some time goes by, token sets continues, and half a year later, or like 9 months later, they create Index Co-op, the one that we've been talking about for a while. And Index Co-op is the DAO with indexes. So basically building forward on these token sets, but now trying to make it that the community can think of index projects and put them forth and then sell these index tokens, and the revenue goes back to index token holders in the future. Right now, index is just a governance token. So I was like, whoa, look, they're decentralizing. That's right up my alley. I want to participate with this. So the first day that this launched, I bought the DPI, the DeFi index token, just to try it out. And then later on, I participated in things. I joined the Discord channels. I started talking. I started asking a bunch of questions because that is my skill as a researcher. And they were like, those are good questions. And I said, well, maybe we should do a call. And we had some calls. I started helping review some of their structures. They started giving me rewards for that. And before you knew it, I was part of a DAO. Then later on, not too long ago, they were starting to think like, okay, Index has these index tokens. And in these index tokens, we have all these other tokens that are part of the index. And those other tokens, they have voting rights. These are governance tokens of other DAOs. And Index didn't want to let this go to waste. They wanted to participate in these votes. So they said to the Index community, all the Index token holders can vote together on what we as a group will vote on these projects, their proposals. And to make this a little bit more streamlined, to make a better connection with these underlying projects, what they did is they wanted to have people to really look into these underlying projects and say like, hey, in their governance fora, this is happening. And they try to inform the Index community. So this developed into that the Index has ambassadors towards these underlying projects, like Kyber Network, the one I mentioned earlier. Now, Kyber Network is one of the tokens in the index, DPI index token. And Kyber is based in Vietnam, where I am based as well. And so it didn't take long for the index community to ask like, hey, Zeb, aren't you in Vietnam? Don't you know people from Kyber? And I was like, yeah, actually, I'm friends with the founder. I am. So like, you could be the perfect candidate for being an ambassador. So now I have an official role in a DAO. That's how things can go. Now that is my story, but basically to recap, this is how it goes. You have a skill, you find some use case that you find interesting, and it can be anything, and it should be something you find interesting. Otherwise, there is no motivation to really participate. Then you go into the channels of this use case and talk with these people, share your thoughts, share your skills, say, I'm here, I'm ready, I want to contribute. And then, for you know it, you have a position. That's basically how it happens with all of these people who become DAOists. Yeah, how proposals look like, an example. Very good. We will look a little bit into that in a bit, but yes, indeed. So how to join a DAO? How to become a contributor? Well, I would say the first one is join Discord channels. Discord is a program or an app that is for communicating with other community members. It started, from my knowledge, as a gaming social media, social platform to talk, but now it's really one of the main cornerstones of DAOs, basically, but of crypto projects in general. I see a question here. Random question. Why is Vietnam so popular for crypto startup? Is it talent, regulatory conditions, or something else? I personally do have an opinion here, so let me quickly answer. I think that Vietnam has a huge young population. A lot of them are interested in working with IT, with computers. So there you already have a young population that understands computing. And I mean, everyone in the world is on telephones right now, but here as well. So they are already completely used to being on the internet. I think this is a reason why so much is coming from Vietnam. I might be forgetting things, but I don't think it's regulatory conditions, because basically Vietnam has been saying that crypto was banned or illegal up and down all the time. And you definitely are not allowed to pay anything with crypto within this country. So yeah, let's see. You can share your perspective here in the chat too. Yeah, well, typing and talking will be a bit too much, but of course, later on, we do have the Unit Masters Telegram chat, and you can always ask questions there. I will answer there as well. Competitive. Yeah, I do think that Emily has a good point there. Vietnam, and Emily, by the way, can definitely answer some questions there as well, because she has been in Vietnam too. That here in this country, people are really hungry as in entrepreneurship. I can see that all around me. And this is just one of the most new innovative areas to be a great entrepreneur in. And you can work yourself up to the top in a very free way. So this is right up the alley of Vietnamese people. Yeah, and so indeed you have like Kyber coming from here, you have Tomo Chain, and of course Axie Infinity, the very big famous NFT game. Most of its team come from Vietnam. So let's get back to how to join a DAO. Discord is what I mentioned. Now Discord, let's look how it looks like. Because the first time you might look into it, it might overwhelm a little bit. So let me give you the first taste, and then you're not overwhelmed the next time you try it out. Here we have a screenshot of Discord. I'm putting away the chat. What we see here, let me go through each step at a time. Here we see a bunch of icons, and those are the different Discord groups. And in my case, they're all blockchain. So the top one here, for instance, is Balancer, which I'm the Balancer Grand DAO lead since a couple of days. A proposal went through the DAO of Balancer. They voted and they accepted me as their grand lead. Quite cool. Then the next one you see here is Index Coop, which is the one you see on the whole screen. Here you have, for instance, Fuse Network, which is a blockchain network for low fees and fast transactions. They're trying to be like a really user-friendly wallet. Here we have Terra, is also a blockchain that is mostly with stable coins. Here we have the Bankless DAO, and the lowest one is the Coffee DAO, which is created by one of my best friends. So if you're a coffee lover and you love blockchain, go join there. It's one of these spontaneous order DAOs, quite interesting. Now, here we see channels within the Discord group. And you can see there are a bunch of types of things like women in index, jobs, institutional business, business development. And then we are in the weekly stand-up where people share what they've contributed. So here basically is the chat where people constantly talk with each other. And here you can see all contribution sheets should be submitted by August 1st. Otherwise, you have to wait until September. So a little bit of structure there, but you will still get paid just a bit later. Let me see a question. Can you explain major entry barrier of competing with the top DAOs rather than community? Is it patents or something else? Takir, I think let's table this question for at the end because it's a bit more in depth and we're almost at the end. So I will answer it in a moment. So that's Discord is one of the ways. Another one is the forum. And this is a just forum online. Here you see the one from Balancer and the proposal that shared from Uniswap will also look a little bit like this. And there you have topics where people reply. They have a whole discussion on new proposals. So Discord is where all discussions and all channels are being talked about. Forum is really centered towards proposals that have to be voted upon, which comes to our next one. If you are a contributor, you get tokens, you are rewarded, you are allowed to vote. And that is mainly done on two apps right now, Snapshot and Boardroom. And here you can see an example. So there you would connect your wallet if you have tokens and you are allowed to vote, otherwise it is no use. And then you can see these like active proposals, for in this case from Aave, here a new collateral type, for instance, and then people vote on it. And you can see it's not always a very clear-cut decision. Sometimes there is a lot of discussion and people are not completely sure on what is the right move forward. Now here, for instance, you see more discussion. Well, it's quite a lot of people. So I wouldn't be surprised if I should check it. This screenshot is already from 2 weeks ago. I wouldn't be surprised that even though this got passed, maybe it went for another round because so many people said, hey, let's discuss this more. It's not, because this is, again, on-chain, off-chain. It has to be afterwards implemented. So it's not immediately binding, not always at least. Which DAO to choose? Because now it is getting close to what you should do with it. I think that Segan has a nice DAO list, so I'm going to move into her Twitter thread. Let's go there. Here is the list. And let's check a little bit of things that she talked about in her long list of DAOs. It's quite interesting to see. So let's start off strong. If you are a builder, you can join metacartels. So if you're a developer. But I can imagine not everyone is a developer. But maybe you love comic books. Then you can join Hero DAO. Or you are interested in what happens to your crypto when you die. Now, of course, this is not a topic we want to think about, but hey, you could imagine that with time, you want to make sure that your family would get your tokens after you die and create a on-chain, decentralized will, testament. And that's possible now. Quite cool. It's not something we want to think about, but it's really cool. Freelance development. So there's one for that. Here, you are a small-time crypto investor and you want to stick it to the wheels, to the big investors. Join together in Whaler DAO. If you like fashion, there is also one. If you are a member of a DAO and you want to work together with other DAOs, now DAO it. Or if you are playing chess, there is a DAO for that. And here there is one for public funding with Gitcoin grants. They have a DAO. Let's see what else we have. We have Aave DAO, of course. We have lossless lotteries. So that is done with you deposit funds, and with the yield, with the savings that are being earned on top of it, the savings are being, in a lottery, and then one person gets the savings, but the rest is still yours. So you don't lose anything, and you might win other people's savings. It's an interesting concept. Let's see, what else do we have? Podcasts, of course. We have Bankless DAO that we talked about. Well, there are a lot of them, as you can see, and there are always more. Why is Pokemon trending in Vietnam? That's a good question. I have no idea. I have no idea. All right. So there are a lot of them. It's basically, let me do presentation again. That's basically the story here. There are a lot, and you can see these slides afterwards. Go check the list and see for yourself. Let's round it up. So conclusion, DAOs have been around for quite some time, already 6 years. But it's still very early. Not all DAOs are really DAOs. Keep that in mind. Now, of course, this is just true with everything in the world. You have to keep a little bit of a critical mind and really do your own research like we did last week. Maybe you can also share the link of the talk we did last week for people who didn't see, and then they can check out how to do your own research. So they are not all DAOs, but they are open, global, and innovative. And that is really cool about this. So join one, because you can. Everyone can join one. So the assignment of today is go through the list of DAOs or do your own research and find a DAO, find a project, enter a channel like Discord, Telegram, or forum, introduce yourself plus your skill set, make one contribution, whatever it may be. I mean, it can be really big and really join a DAO, but it can also be that you just you ask a question that you don't understand yet, and the day later, you go to the same channel and you see maybe someone asks the same question and you can answer it. Like, try to be helpful in the community. Everyone can make one contribution for sure. And then share the experience in your study group or in the chat where I will also be. Now, the Q&A. So if you want to find more of me, well, I'm on Twitter. You can find my own crypto wiki to find all kinds of information about all these DAOs. You can scan that. If you feel like, do your own research is too much for me, you can go to the fund that I work with. We obviously help those people out there. But for now, it is time for Q&A. Thank you for listening, all of you. I see everyone is happy. That's very good. I'm glad this was informative. Let me see if I can answer the question of Takir. Can you explain major entry barriers for competing with top DAOs? rather than community? Is it patents or something else? Yeah, so from what I understand, what you're asking here is if you are a new project that wants to compete with existing projects that are DAOs, what is the major challenge as a new project to compete with already existing ones? Now, patents, I think patents is slowly becoming a thing yet, like with Uniswap has patents and Curve has patents, but people are still copying the code anyway. And the last word is not really out there on if these patents are going to mean anything. So I wouldn't say that one. I think community is probably the biggest one, just the network effect indeed is the biggest one. And I would say with top DAOs, yeah, network effect. I think that's the main one is network effect. Let me think if I can think of another major barrier of competing. I mean, that's the beauty of this, is that everyone can create a new one and just see if it works out. So I think mainly network effect. Any other questions out there? And I'm really happy all of you enjoyed it so much. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed it, also fill in the form that Jeep shared about today's talk and let me know more of what you think I could do better or what I did well. Any other questions? If there are none, still, if you later want to ask the question, always possible. I am in the chat of Unit Masters, and you can find me on Twitter, so you can just ask me questions there.
Thank you very much, Zeb. Everybody, please take a minute to fill the survey, and we see you tomorrow for a talk with Michelle Tsing from Elevate the Blockchain. And next week, we will have a workshop with Siddiq Patel on how to use the blockchain explorers. We'll look at 2 different explorers and teach you, how you can gather data from everything.
Very good.
So thanks very much, Zeb. I also shared the recording from the last workshop, which was about doing your own research. And yeah, hope everybody's well and see you again soon. Bye bye.
Yes. Bye bye, everyone.